Welcome to the Sanity Project podcast, the place for internet technology professionals whose work-life balance plan has imploded. We are here to provide solutions that will help the IT pro live a sane, healthy, and prosperous life. Here's your host, Joanne Victoria.
Hi, I'm Joanne Victoria, the I Know What Work coach. I am the author of 7 books, including Lighting Your Path, How to Create the Life You Want, and Pushy for a Moment, Instant Solutions to Everyday Challenges. I am also the host of the podcast you're listening to, the Sanity IT Project Podcast. And I partner with IT pros in telecommunications, technology, entertainment, and mass media industries whose work-life integration plan has imploded. And they want more success, more confidence, more fun, and more inner peace. I interview experts in the areas of leadership, anxiety, relationships, money, and a whole slew of wonderful topics. Our guest today covers many of those topics. Our guest today is Charelle Lans. Charelle is a strategist, philanthropist, mother, writer, and professional. She is a segment industrial engineering manager for a multi-billion-dollar consumer products company. She has been an influencer in her career, leading platform development and strategic vision settings for many organizations. Graduating from Florida State University with a degree in industrial engineering, Charelle has served in numerous leadership roles with notable Fortune 500 companies. Charelle is also the loving mother of a vibrant 6-year-old son and the author of the soon-to-be-released book, Leading with Feet, Making Intentional Steps to Live Out Your Best. Welcome to the show, Charelle Lans.
Thank you so much, Joanne. It is such a pleasure to be here today.
I am so glad you're here. And I'm reading, and you want to help our listeners pursue their dreams, even if they don't have it ground in concrete. You want them to be able to expand on what they are now able to do by going back to basics and overcoming difficult situations. Have you ever been in, so your difficult situation that got you here was what?
Yeah, so it actually happened for me in the year of 2012. I was actually in a very difficult place in my life. I was a mother on the verge of, a wife on the verge of a divorce with a young child, and I found myself in what was a very difficult space. And some of these things, at least initially with that one, I was pushed into an area where I had to be creative and inventive to overcome my situation. And so I had essentially 2 choices: stay there and basically succumb to the pressure of being a put-together mom, a professional and wife on the verge of divorce, or to figure out how to create the best out of my situation. And what I chose to do was the latter, which was to become inventive, creative, and strategic. But as you would know, it's very difficult when the tangibles don't exactly line up with what you envision. And so what I decided to do in that instance was actually take what was a half marathon, and I used that as a framework to help me overcome my difficult time, which was the divorce at the time.
Yeah, I identify with that. I had 3 children in similar situations where I could have literally stayed where I was. And for some reason, I didn't do that. I traveled 3,000 miles across the country to get away from the past in that sense.
Wow.
I didn't want to be around those people anymore and try to figure out from what I had, what little I had at the time in education and time on this earth, etc., and overcome my difficulties. And they were strong difficulties.
Yeah, no, I completely understand that. And mine was very similar. And what I found was that by making the correlation between something that felt inconceivable, just difficult to overcome. So the divorce in my mind, I just couldn't wrap my mind around how I was going to get through that at the time. But by associating that with a half marathon, what I found was that the same mental struggles that I had from an abstract perspective of the divorce were the exact same things I had to overcome as it related to the half marathon. And so I actually associated it with the divorce. And by doing that, I was able to overcome the same thing with going from getting up and getting going and actually overcoming the mental block that I had for the half marathon to making the correlation with my divorce. I was able to overcome both, actually.
So what I hear you saying is that the techniques that you used in the half marathon were techniques you applied to overcoming the difficulties with the divorce, etc. Is that?
Exactly.
I don't
exactly.
Yeah, I'm not simplifying your pain. I'm just looking at how, by saying it, I'm helping people, and you're helping people see that they have the tools within them to do the thing they think they want to do.
Exactly. And you hit the nail right on the head, Joanne, which was the first thing you want to do is recognize that you can, that you are worth the pursuit of the dream, the goal, the vision, because if you do not have that within your mind, and if you don't believe it within yourself, you're right. So if you believe that you can't, you won't. And if you believe that you can, you will. And I remember even going through the struggle of, which is all natural, the mental aspect of the start, the stop, the continue, the can I. So it first starts out in the mind. And once you're able to convince yourself that you can do it, you then work towards embodying it. I always say that, Miles Monroe had this saying that the richest place on earth was the graveyard. And he's right. For those of us who believe or stay stagnant or stay where we are, we never truly overcome it and become the best that we're supposed to be. And for those listeners that you have, I would just suggest that you try this, which is sometimes it helps to embody that place. So close your eyes and picture a cool, dark place. And you cannot see or anything beyond the dampness of the space. But with your eyes still closed, envision that dream that you've always wanted to go after. What does it feel like to achieve it? How would your life change? What emotions do you feel? Now open your eyes, because that dark place, it was a grave. And the dreams you saw were the life that you were due, but did not quite achieve because you stopped too short of the pursuit. But why did you stop, or why didn't you start? You see, your life is worth so much more than just the mere beating of your heart. So persist if you must, but just don't quit. Live on a deeper level than to just exist. So you've got this. And believe it or not, a lot of times we tell ourselves that we can't have it and we're not worth, the dreams that we want to pursue. And we get stuck in what I call is the middle. And the middle is where you've got this big idea, but you don't know how to manifest it or bring it into fruition. And so we stop, or we might feel that we have time. And if you ask yourself, what is time? Time is really just a social construct to measure the distance between 2 points of references. And you can't really measure something that was only intended to be measured. You can't really manage something that was only intended to be measured. But instead, you can manage your energy and when you use it and when you decide what you decide to do at your peak times, as well as your down times. Those are things that are all within our direct control. And so one of the things that I say is always gauge when you're most effective and utilize that time for your creative energy. And every single day that you wake up, work a little bit after it. I mentioned I'm now a single mom, and people would often ask me, well, how did you find time to write a book? And I said, well, the first thing you really want to do is create space. and you create the space within your existing day. You find the downtime moments that exist. So, for example, or the idle time. For me, it was driving to and from work or driving throughout the day and taking my research on the go, if you will. We have so much technology nowadays that helps us with managing our time, managing our energy, managing our resources, utilizing tools like tape recorders. The opportunities, are vast and wide, and it's just sometimes it just takes being a little bit inventive to fulfilling what you feel you're here on the earth for.
Absolutely. So what technology did you use while you were commuting back and forth from work or whatever time you were in the car to write your book? Or did you?
Yeah. No, I did. So I found I travel quite a bit sometimes, and I started utilizing my downtime, whether it was wait times in the airport or my commute. I actually just brought a handheld tape recorder, and I would do my research either before I got on the road, or I would put books on tape and I would listen and dictate my notes. And, I know it seems very difficult that, okay, well, now I've got to take this thing off of the tape recorder. But most computers are made, or they come with the system of ease of access for hearing impaired. And I would just set it down and, make sure that it understood, my diction, and I would hit play. And I hit play and it would transcribe all the notes that I had, and I'd spend time going back and actually modifying my book, modifying, the commentary, making edits throughout the book. And so for me, I utilized that as best as I could. And then, of course, the other thing I did was I modified my schedule. So I get up at 4:30, and that's my peak time. I am an early bird. And so with my mornings, which is my time, that's where I did my writing, I did my research, my analogs, my interviews, etc. Because once the day started for me, it was between work, and then the evenings belonged to my son. So for me, it was important to do that and recognize that really I was writing this book more than just for me. It was definitely for those who want to get going and to get moving. I am naturally a strategist, so working the middle, which is oftentimes the hard part for most, comes easier for me. And I just was in my thoughts thinking about how do I take this information and make it tangible and helpful and relevant to those who want to pursue their goals and dreams, regardless of where they are in life.
Yeah, this is amazing. That what I think is that many of us have similar paths that we parallel through life, and not everybody has the solution. Some of which you've come up today, and the ones that need the solution are going to listen to this podcast and going to read your book, and they're going to get the solutions that get them out of the middle. And I find that very adventuresome, very challenging, and very beneficial to others, which is, of course, what's important to me. And I know it's important to you because you put your story and your life out there in the book, which I will repeat again, leading with feet, making intentional steps to live out your best. And I think that the intentional part is really, really important. Could you touch on that a little bit?
Absolutely. So when we talk about making intentional steps, so you can move in a number of different directions, but what you'll find, just like light, when it's scattered, it can only go so far. But when you tone in and you make your focus laser sharp, meaning that you have defined exactly what your target is or what your goal is, that you're working towards it, and you're moving in the direction of that goal. What you don't want to do is just create a lot of movement and get nowhere. Same thing with swimming. Same thing with going after your dreams. You can get from one point in terms of point A to point B directly by making intentional steps towards it, meaning that you're walking in it, but then you're also measuring it, you're learning from it, you are capturing the successes against it, but then also the learnings. I don't call them failures, I call them learnings, because every opportunity and everything that does not come back the way that you expect it to is learning. And it's the same thing when you are learning a new skill. So you're building your muscle memory towards your goal. As long as you are consistent in that respective direction and in that respective course that you are charting, you will begin to create the movement and the momentum that you want to drive. And so in the book, I talk a lot about building momentum and building momentum or building the energy towards your goal. If you think about a rock, when it's resting and when it's in its potential state, you can consider that your ideation stage, or when you're developing your idea and when you're not putting any movement against it, it's all of the energy is harnessed within that rock. But until you begin to get it going and in motion, it just remains within the rock. But once you're able to find and define the direction and with intentionality go after it, you create the execution steps that are necessary to taking you towards your dream. And once that rock is in motion, it can take down anything, just about anything in its path, by building that level of momentum.
That sounds fascinating. There's someone I know, and I'll give you her name after the show because I don't want to distract people too much, but she talks about rocks in her life, how her friend gave her 50 rocks. It might have been for her 50th birthday. I can't recall. And they were all painted a different color, but they also had emotions on them in print. So these were the things that she needed to either overcome, why we need to build momentum, why people don't build momentum, how to build momentum, and what momentum will do for them. You talk about that, so I won't need to talk for a while.
There you go. It's gone.
There we go. See? And it was a minute. It's the oddest thing. But that's okay. We'll take it all out. We'll take it all out. But talk about momentum and why people need momentum, how to get it and how to use it and how to help it move them forward.
Exactly. Okay. So when it comes to building momentum, what I always say is first define the direction that you want to go and be, which is the first thing. So after you've convinced yourself that you're worth going after your goals and you have gotten past that, the next step is to really take a step. And as a part of that, you identify exactly what that is. So if it's in the case of, and I'll just use the half marathon since it's a consistent example that I use in the book, the first thing was, okay, you get past the mental fog of, can I do this? I mean, it just feels so far out of reach, to, okay, well, maybe I can. Then you want to get out and actually test the waters. And why I say test the waters is you want to get going so that you understand exactly what it feels like to begin moving. The beginning is always the most difficult, and that's typically with anything. But I would also say maintaining consistency to finishing when you experience setbacks or things that don't exactly feel like they are on course is also equally as important. So once you've actually gotten started, or for me in that case, I began walking and just put on some sneakers and got on the treadmill and said, well, let me see how I feel. And what I found was that, I mean, it was a lot harder than I thought just to get 1 mile in, and it took me a long time. But what it really did was stretch me into saying, is this the right goal that I want to go after? But also help me to establish what were the necessary metrics that I would use to measure success. As a part of when you're building momentum, you have to be intentional about what the direction is. Now, in that case, I did not flip from saying I wanted to do a half to I want to go do boxing or whatever it was. And I'm not saying that you can't do those interchangeably. It's just you when it comes to defining your direction, you want to be as specific as possible so that you can then create the muscle memory, the emotional ties, and the learnings that take you towards that respective goal. As a part of when you're building momentum, the other thing that I would simply suggest having is making sure that you've got a buddy that's accountable to you to help hold you accountable for your dreams or your goals or your aspirations. So one way that you can do that is identify a specific time. So for me, I said it was 4 a.m. that I would get up and do a little bit towards it every day. And in the same way that they say that I read somewhere that it takes 21 days. I can't remember where it was, but I read somewhere that it takes 21 days to create a habit. It's the exact same thing with creating the momentum in a respective direction. And you want to train your body or train yourself in the direction that you intend to go.
There you go. Well, I hope everybody has listened to you. I want to make sure, I'll say it again, probably in another 2 minutes, but those of you that are listening to this podcast right now with Charelle Lans about leading with your feet, one step at a time, listen to this again. Rewind, listen to the beginning, listen to it all over again, listen to it a third time, because this is going to give you such power and many, many tools, and refer it to your friends, refer to your friends, your loved ones, your frenemies, I don't really care, but everybody, because that's the best way to get Charelle Lans' information out there, because this is extremely beneficial. She is not challenging you to climb a mountain. She is not even challenging you at all. She's giving you the opportunity to move forward with your life and get it out of the middle of the decisions that you're making. One of the things that I wanted to ask you, Charelle, is what has been a lesson or advice that has stuck with you? And can you give me an example of that?
A lesson or advice that has stuck with me through the years?
Sure. Absolutely.
Honestly, it's that I can do whatever I put my mind to. And the advice that was given to me was, and it sounds very, very cliche, but it was my mother, who simply said, whatever you put your mind to, truly. And it sounds so simple, and it really is. And it's so simple that I think we overcomplicate it sometimes. But if you can conceive it and you believe that you can truly do it, you absolutely can. It's just a matter of giving ourselves a push, not a chance, because chance just truly implies that luck has something to do with it. But when you give yourself a push, you put yourself in motion. And once you begin to put yourself in motion, you create the momentum.
Yeah, it seems that once you start doing something, once you take that one footstep forward, if you're smart and if you're aware and if you've listened to this podcast and or read your book, you sort of can't help yourself from moving forward.
Correct.
Okay, well, I really appreciate you being here. This has been a great show. You've been a great benefit to our audience. Remember, her book is Leading with Feet, Making Intentional Steps to Live Out Your Best. I will
Thank you so much, Joanne.
Well, I'm just going to say one more thing, and I would suggest people that go to my AskJoanneVictoria.com website and download a free copy of the True Self Handbook, A Guide to Transform Your Life. We're all helping all of our listeners out there, so know that we are here for you. And again, Charelle Lans, strategist, philanthropist, mother, writer, and professional. I thank you so much for being here today on the show, Charelle.
Thank you so much, Joanne. It's been a sincere pleasure.
Thank you.
I hope you enjoyed this episode of the Sanity Project podcast. Please go to AskJoanneVictoria.com and continue the conversation on my podcast page. And get a free copy of my book, The True Self Handbook, A Guide to Transform Your Life. That's AskJoanneVictoria.com. Take care, and thanks for being here.